So it's the turn of the National Water Commission to pronounce on this issue of whether or not the water being served to customers in the Kingston and St. Andrew region is indeed safe for consumption. The opposition PNP had its time at bat on Wednesday's show, making the case why this is not so and that the concerns demand greater transparency from the NWC. The NWC gets its right of response this evening. Also on the show at the very top, we'll tell you what the opposition PNP is saying through its attorney regarding a letter sent to the Boundaries and Constituencies Committee of Parliament regarding their work about the alignment of the boundaries for the proposed parish of Portmore. A lot to cram into the time we have allotted. So let's start the show. Lead story starts now. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. My name is George Davis. So good to have you on the show. So good to have your support. Your comments are always welcome. Your criticism and your critique is necessary to keep us on our toes and to ensure that we give you the best value for the time you invest in watching this show. So, just to give you a sense of what brings the NWC to the show this afternoon, it's the same issue that brought the PNP's Jesse James Clark, the councillor for the Trafalgar Division and the junior spokesman on health, to this very platform on Wednesday. The issue of the water quality in the Kingston and St. Andrew region. Is it safe?
The Ministry of Health and Wellness has confirmed that water samples taken from the corporate area have tested positive for E. coli bacteria. However, the ministry has reassured the public that there is no immediate cause for concern. E. coli is a bacteria commonly found in the intestines of both humans and animals, and it can sometimes contaminate water sources due to external factors. This statement comes after People's National Party councillor and opposition junior spokesman on health Jesse James Clark once again raised concerns about the quality of water supplied to residents in Kingston and St. Andrew. Clark brought the issue to the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation KSAMC meeting, sparking an uproar among council members. During the meeting, Clark introduced a resolution that prompted Councillor John Myers for the Lawrence Tavern Division to voice his opinion, labeling the motion as politically motivated before storming out of the session. The resolution highlighted that, according to the National Water Commission's results presented at the monthly Public Health and Sanitation Committee meetings, residents in rural areas of the KSAMC have been receiving subpar water. Social media users have already begun reacting to the news, calling for full transparency from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So, is there cause for concern? We discuss further in today's lead story. Courtney Lewis for Lead Story.
Thank you, Courtney. We're going to speak with Delana Williams, the acting corporate public relations manager at the NWC, earlier on in the show, and then towards the back end, we'll deal with that issue concerning the letters sent to the Boundaries Commission by the attorney representing the PNP concerning the alignment of boundaries for the Portmore parish and what the law says and does not say. All these and more, or all those and more, after this break.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. We've got everything, stocking top brands like CNCs, Philips, and Allen Bradley. We guarantee quality and reliability. Shop with us and save with even free island-wide delivery. Conditions apply. Visit us at Shop 8 Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10. Call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in electrical business.
The Cut Gone International.
I'm coming from running in a national stadium with Val saying, Sonia, a champion.
You get a lot of love from Jamaica, but it wasn't always like that.
Finally, right?
When I came and I ran for the World Juniors and the Jamaicans was booing me, at 16, 17 to go through that was really hard for me.
Track is my whole life, my whole world, and then everything just goes dark.
The Cut, brought to you by Flow.
All right, so just how safe is the water that you are using if you are a corporate area resident? You'd have been tracking the media over the recent weeks and seen the concerns raised by members of the opposition PNP. On Wednesday's show, the junior spokesman on health, the councillor for the Trafalgar Division, Jesse James Clark, said that E. coli, dangerous levels of E. coli, are in the water at this moment, and that the NWC and the Health Ministry have issued statements confirming this. I challenged him on that, and that's where the interview disintegrated. So I'm turning to Delano Williams, the Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager at the National Water Commission now, and that's the first issue I'm putting to him. Welcome to the show, Delano.
Hi, thank you for having me. Good evening to your viewers.
Good.
Definitely a pleasure to be here.
All right, let me put the question to you now properly.
Yes.
Has the National Water Commission communicated in any medium or through any media that there is unsafe levels of E. coli in the water that residents in the Kingston and St. Andrew area are using?
No, what we have communicated is that where we find any adverse situation, we've outlined the steps that are taken to treat with any adverse environmental factor that will impact on water quality that we distribute to our customers. If I may go a step further, what I think bears an acknowledgement is that there is in fact, and there are in fact environmental risks that confront water supply and water supply harnessing. It's not unique to Jamaica. Anywhere in the world you go, you have cases where surface water sources face an impact on their routine quality due to drought conditions on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, heavy rainfall and what is called high turbidity, such as when you have Jamaicans would say when river come down, so the water becomes very brown, it has debris, and sometimes it carries away with it stuff like garbage or so on from improperly disposed locations. And there are other impacts such as farming practices, slash and burn, which can threaten the water source.
Question for you, Delano.
Yeah.
Yesterday on this show, on Wednesday, the junior spokesman on health for the opposition said, in response to me pointing out to him that where there are adverse readings from tests done by the NWC, that the NWC suspends distributing the water through those channels, rectifies the situation, and then resumes servicing customers. He said that his information is, and it's a matter of public record, he says his information is that NWC continues to distribute the contaminated water even after its readings show that the water has contaminants above the accepted standards. Is this true?
No, we're not aware of that kind of situation. It would be irresponsible of us to in any way do that. And the findings from the Ministry of Health, which is an independent body who regulate us, also point to the fact that the water that is distributed to customers is within the standards or has not warranted any kind of advisory to say boil water or to shut down a system beyond the standard time, which is what we take to resolve any issue that we find in terms of adverse environmental impact.
Stick up in.
Before we
Stick
restart.
up in, Mr. Williams. Stick up in, Delano.
No
so,
problem.
when the NWC does its tests, and in those instances where the readings that it records show
Yes.
that contaminants are in the water above acceptable standards, who audits that the NWC acts in a manner to stop distributing that water, resolves the situation, and then resumes servicing the communities that would get the water from the source that the contaminants above the acceptable level are found?
So our first point is the standards that we operate by. So we have an obligation to provide water within the standards prescribed by the Ministry of Health and also the World Health Organization. So we don't have to wait on them to come to say, okay, stop what you're doing here because the water has failed. There is already a very strict standard of operation. There are protocols in place. Secondly, the Ministry of Health, as I said, does their own operations to say they have checked this at these particular facilities and these are their findings. So if there is something that warrants any action, then they will also notify us. I want to give you an example, if I may, George.
Yes.
All right. So let's take it a little bit away from the rural or the KSA environment, just to illustrate the standard that we operate by. A few weeks ago, we took samples from our raw water source in the at our Spanish Town treatment plant, deriving from the Rio Cobre facility. When we got the samples, we recognized that they were above the normal range, which would make it safe for us to deliver water. We immediately shut down the facility. And so there was no, and then we tested at our raw water points, and we continued to test until we saw that the water had come back to a quality which is safe for us to treat and to distribute to our customers. The same protocols apply for any systems we operate, whether it is in Hanover, whether it is in St. Elizabeth, whether it is in Portland, and it doesn't matter.
I hear you on that. Is it possible? Well,
Yeah.
let me rephrase this. Has the NWC ever tested water from any of its sources or distribution, parts of a distribution system, found that the water has contaminants above the safe level, ignored that warning, and continue to distribute that water to customers?
That would be irresponsible of us. We can't do that.
So that has, how long have you been with the NWC, Mr. Williams?
I have been with the NWC for over 20 years.
In your time with the NWC, has that ever happened where unsafe water, contaminated water, reflected by readings from the samples taken showing that the water is contaminated, and the NWC continues to distribute the water to residents?
George, viewers, that is not what we do. Our operations dictate a prescribed approach. Now, let us be very clear about how contaminants get to water. You may have a situation where you are operating, pulling water from a same river source or spring source for 30 days out of the month. A shower of rain comes and it impacts your operations. One reading could very well fail the entire average, affect the entire average for a month. It doesn't mean that you have had a failure for 30 days. So even when we present a report to the public that says we now have a 15% range, reading outside of the range, what it is really saying is that you would have had instances, 1, 2, or 3 days, which have impacted the entire month's average. I give you an illustration. So simple mathematics. You have a class of students, 30 students, and 25 of them get marks above 95%. But the remaining 5 of them get marks between 60 and 70. The average may very well fall outside of the 95%
Well,
range,
it will.
just by the fact of those. And it's the same thing. So you have, for instance, 1 or 2 days of, whether it's a slash and burn activity,
Yes.
one instant, or you have heavy rainfall, what it is, we capture all of those readings. Out of transparency, we present those readings, but that is not the full story. The full story is what does the NWC do after those adverse situations are found.
Yes.
So there is no continuum to say from January, or let's use April, from April 1 through to April 5, you had continuous failings.
Yes.
No. A lot of our rural systems, you will see turbidity notices
Yes.
Being put out. There are others where we will say operational challenges, because whatever it is, we also have to be responsible. So we do public education, but you don't necessarily want to cause panic.
Yes.
And that is what we were seeking to address by pointing out a number of the realities. One of them, for instance, is that the rural systems, even though there are 30-odd systems, they only make up 6% of the water. That is, they only provide water to 6% of the KSA population. Let me go again. So you have 500,000 customers being provided water from the NWC. The rural systems, which we are now discussing, only provide to 6%
Yes.
of those.
Yes.
So to immediately put it into perspective, there are 460,000 customers who get water every day that is not even considering any adverse situation. Yes. There is no risk.
Yes.
Every day.
But for the 6% of the population that have the issues, you suspend supply until the issues are rectified, is what you're saying?
Pretty much.
Hold the line for us. Hold the line for us, Delano. We have to take a break and come right back. Speaking with the Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager at the National Water Commission, Delano Williams, it's to provide information for you to make up your mind about where truth lies in this issue. More after the break.
Join my private room. Only $1,000 for a grand time.
That I know me. We never said that. But who going to believe me?
That is correct. $4,350,000. Yes, go ahead. $4 million? I never approved that.
Yes, me go doctor tomorrow. So me have to get the money today, no longer. Then no me face that. We never make no record or beg nobody no money.
Deepfakes are AI-generated images and videos made to look and sound like people we know and trust. They're used to spread misinformation, destroy reputations, and are used to commit fraud and scams. Don't fall victim to deepfakes. Protect yourself. For more information, visit broadcastingcommission.org or scan the QR code on screen.
Sir Jeffrey.
Yeah, welcome to Jeffrey Flower Supply. Lots of persons don't know that grape grow in Jamaica.
No, grape or some vineyard over Italy, over the wine capital. You went with grapes and flowers.
Nah, I have my gloves, but when we just started out, just on alone.
But as a businessman, you can't be afraid to get your hands dirty now.
The National Water Commission's Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager, Delano Williams, is my guest on the show this evening. Delano, if I were to say to you that I took the NWC's January water quality report, if that's what you call it, I'm just using phraseology for my audience to understand. So if I take your January 2025 water quality report and look at an E. coli reading at 30 measures per unit above what is normal. And then I take your February water quality reading and see that it is 23 outside, lower than January, but still above the range. That was in February. Would I be accurate in using the February reading of E. coli to say that right now, on this day in sports in April 2025, E. coli is in the water?
No, you wouldn't be accurate. again, let's go. And I'm happy you went there in terms of the reading. So the first thing I want to mention, and this needs to be very clear, the readings on the reports that are presented are not reflecting E. coli. They represent something called total coliform, which is a wide group of naturally occurring bacteria coming from soil, vegetation, and in some instances, animal waste. So this could be animal droppings, anything from the gut, right? Now, whenever we get a reading, George, the first thing that we do is we take a second test to look for fecal coliform or E. coli, which is what causes E. coli, all right? Now, those readings that are presented are not fecal readings, they are readings showing total coliform. A separate test is done for that. What the Ministry of Health has confirmed is that there is a small sample, not acceptable, but a small sample of approximately 2%, which is by our readings, which test for fecal. Now, what we do immediately is that is still testing. So now the fact that a student is late doesn't mean the student is failing an exam. The fact that I show you a failed result, as I explained to you, doesn't mean it's getting into the water. What it means is that we've tested and then we go to the remedial steps that must be taken. And a report just showing the percentages does not quantify the shutdown that we do, the retest that we do, before the sterilization that we do, whether it's at the what we call intake, or anywhere along the line that we detect that there is some kind of intrusion. Because you do have cases where the line breaks and it is exposed to environmental factor.
Let me ask you this last one. So all right, let's imagine that you test and you find a lot of E. coli, not coliform, but specifically in the family of coliform, E. coli. You find a lot of E. coli on March 1.
Yes.
Would it be accurate today on April 10 to say, because you found such a large representation of E. coli in a sample on March 1, it means that E. coli is in the water today? Would that be accurate?
No, you can't do that because one, especially for those systems, water is constantly moving. So whatever may have impacted the water on March 1 may have resolved itself. It may have been a shower of rain. The steps we took after that March 1 incident, we would have determined if it requires a continuous shutdown to March 2 or 3, which is the case with sometimes heavy rain, we maintain a shutdown. Now, we test every single day, George. So we're not going to produce or distribute water if we know it is failing. We test, we show the records that we have tested, but it doesn't mean we are distributing the water.
Hear you on that. Delano, that's all the time I have. Thank you very much for your time and for your patience in explaining. And I'm certain my viewers would have heard you clearly and are able to make up their mind where truth lies in all of this. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager at the NWC, Delano Williams. Now, quickly,